You comfortable? Because I don't want no shuffling around in my thing.
All right.
Okay. I always get nervous. Hey guys, welcome back to the Lived It podcast. I'm your host, Liv, and I'm here today with my aunt, Kathyann Lavarity. How are you?
I am well. How are you?
I'm good. Are you happy to be here?
I am excited.
Okay. She said she was nervous. I don't know why. It's just little old me. But you've been a pastor my whole life, and you're passionate about what you do, and you're authentic. And I can honestly say that the person that you are and that you show that you are, that's who you are. And I just want you to kind of break it down to the audience of what does that mean? Because Kathyann has been married 20 plus years. You and your husband have 4 beautiful kids together. And I mean, your marriage, I'm sure is not perfect, but it seems perfect. So I kind of want to get the insight from you.
Well, first of all, it didn't start off at that. Of course, before I met my husband, I was dating somebody that was unsaved.
Right.
And of course, you feel that love, you feel that butterflies, he complimented me always, just talking about how beautiful I was, whatever. But there came a time where it was more than just words. I was like, God, is this the one for you?
Right.
For me, I wanted to know, he seemed like he was getting very interested in me. The relationship was going further. And then I found myself wanting to really please God, not just say it with my lips. Mm-hmm. And so we were dating and we would be praying together. And then we praying together. And when I look over, he's asleep. And I'm like, how could you be sleeping and we supposed to be praying? And so it just got so physical, it wasn't sexual now, physical and sexual, but it was just so everything about how I look and this and that, nothing about God.
Right.
And I literally was like, God, is this the one for me? And so I prayed about it. And I know all of us know what prayer is, just communication with God, because he answers us in the most unusual areas, or, he gives us such unusual answers, let me say. And so I remember, this is literally over 23 years ago. I said, God, is this the one for me? If this isn't the one for me, I need you to let him break up with me.
Right.
I literally put a fleet out for God. And I said, God, if this isn't one. And he called me a couple of months later and he said, I can't do this relationship. I was like,
just
what?
That clear?
I was like, what? And I started to cry. And the Lord said, why are you crying? You asked me if this was the one.
Right.
And so we broke up.
Wait, so what was the reason that he gave you? He just said, I'm breaking
up.
He
said he can't do it anymore. He can't do the long distance.
Okay.
Because, of course, he lived in the Bahamas. I lived in the States.
Okay.
And so he said he couldn't do it. I said, okay. And so after that, my family was like, oh, you left him like that. And so I don't want people to get a misconception that sometimes it just lands right in your lap. This is the perfect one. Oh, he is God sent. Sometimes you don't know if this is the perfect one. And that's why you literally have to have that relationship with God. You might not be to that place where you want to be, but you want to have some type of communication. So when things, when the rubber meets the road, you say, God, is this the one before I make this marriage?
Right.
Because the infatuation stage is lovely and he compliments you and you beautiful, he's handsome, he pick you up, you go for lunch. Mm-hmm. But then when you tie that knot, that's a different level now, because now you're standing before, even if you don't stand before God, you're taking that commitment. And the Bible said marriage is honorable and the bed undefiled. So God honors marriage. That's his first institution. He loves marriage. He loves family. And so I was to the place where my family was like, oh, you left him and da-da-da. And I was like, you know what? Yes, I did. And then I said, you know what? Let me try it again.
Right. So how long was that, like, in between that process?
It was a couple months. But the thing about it is I'm very spiritual. Mm-hmm. I was at a woman's conference. This goes so deep. I was at a woman's conference and this woman ministered to me. And she said, the one that you're dating is not your husband.
Just that clear.
As clear can be. And I was like, you know what? My heart literally sank because I just knew he was 6'2". He was, fine and wine,
He was everything.
Everything, the real looking, nice shoes, right. Very dressy, very suave. And I said, okay. And my girlfriend, we came down. She was like, okay, so the lady said, it's not the one. You still gonna go back? I said, well, if the Lord does not want him to be for me, the Lord, because we think that God is this pushover. No, he gives us a free will. He gives us a free choice, and that's the misconception, because we feel that, okay, he's gonna drop a bird out of the sky. No, there are times when he's already told you no, but he also gives you the desires of your heart.
Right.
And so, anyway, long story short, he was not the one. I was a young minister.
Because you got dumped.
I know, but I went back. I was a young minister at the time, and guess what his thoughts? He said to me. He said, if you were to get pregnant, I want you to have the baby. And it was like he slapped me.
Right.
And it was like the Holy Ghost said, guess what? I told you that was not the one. In fact, I got the word from this lady that he was wolf in sheep clothing. And the one that God had for me had the word written all over him. And so there I was, being young in my early 20s, looking, searching. But that's not biblical. The Bible says, he that findeth a wife findeth a good thing. It never said that woman is supposed to go looking around for a man. And so when I met your uncle, I heard so much about him from his sister, because we lived across the street from one another.
Yeah.
Okay? And so I heard so much about him, but at the time I was still dating this other guy.
Right.
And so the Lord said to me, I'm not the author of confusion. I'm not a mix-up, because of course I would have immediately fell for your uncle.
Right.
And so in the process, me and this young man, we stopped dating or whatever, because I realized that he was not genuine.
So did you dump him at that point, or didn't
Oh, definitely. I was like, oh, hell no.
You ain't gonna get me twice.
No. So hell no. I was like, okay, Holy Ghost is like, I told you. And so I met your uncle, and he was a real man of God. I was blown away, and your aunts, my sisters, always say, what did you do to him, or what did she do to you? However, but I was so taken aback that the next day I went to work, and I said, I met a man of God. And they were looking at me like, okay. No, I was like, really? He didn't ask anything about my flesh, or, he wasn't trying to be little sexual. Right. Because we know that even sometimes, even though people claim to be Christian or spiritual, they're very physical.
Right.
And so sometimes even as Christians, you get to know people on the physical level before you get to know them spiritually. And so when you're going through, and I'm running ahead of myself, you going through in a marriage, you think you weren't about sex, you think you weren't about all this stuff. You're trying to ask God now for wisdom, knowledge, and understanding. How are we going to get through this thing that's happened in our family? And so when you say looking for a man that honors God, or wanting to put God in your marriage, you want to have balance.
Right.
You want to know that man is able to say, hey, you know what? We really in a financial bind. We really going through. Let's pray.
Right.
Or I heard this real encouragement from one of these pastors, and just listen to it or whatever. And because they might not be to that place, but at least they're open to hear some type of spiritual counseling. And so my first initial thoughts of your uncle was like, oh my God, this man is amazing. Because now I was not just not dating. I dated before, even being a Christian, but I realized that a lot of male or persons who claim Christianity, it's only on their lips. But you get them in a one-on-one situation, or you get them behind closed doors, they'll do just ungodly stuff.
Right. And then go back and be like, God forgive me.
Please, Lord. Hello, Jesus.
The premeditated sin.
Yes. And one pastor said it like this. He said, lay and play on Friday and Sunday, and pray for crop failure on Sunday. So what that mean? You lay and play, you do your dirt on Friday and Saturday, and Sunday you say, Lord, forgive me, for I have sinned.
Right. And
that's all right, but you don't want to constantly live that type of lifestyle. And so 22 years, it's I can't even imagine my life pretty much without him. Because he's brought such stability. When I met him, I was like, oh, Lord, this is not the one for me. He is too saved.
Was there such thing as too saved?
Yeah, because he was just so genuine. I mean, I was still being refined around the edges, and that's why I smile, because
he was able to like pull you.
Yes, he was like, I thought I was a prayer warrior. I was like, you praying again? Oh my God. Or reading the word, or he just loved God. And then most of all, he loved me.
Right.
I mean, and people see this saved version, but there are flaws to this masterpiece. You have your flaws. You have your moments when you don't want to be spiritual. You have your moments when you want to tell your husband a piece of your mind, but then he would constantly say, baby, you're getting in the flesh. I was like, let me get there. But, and that's what the Bible talks about. It says love covers a multitude of sin. And I can truly say that because of his love for God, he covered me a lot of times. Even in my flaws, or even when I said the wrong thing, or even when I didn't make the right decision when it came to raising the children, or even when I did a financial, move that cost the family.
Right.
And I remember his sister, I wouldn't want to call her name, but I would come over to shop, because he would send me over to shop. At the time we were living back in the Bahamas, and he would send me over to the shop, and he gave me money 22 plus years to make sure the groceries in the house, to make sure that his kids was fed, to make sure that there was food on the table, and I did my part. And that's why I said the balance is God, because sometimes people look at it and say, well, you do everything. No, but the God in me say, you know what? This is my helpmate. I'm going to help you.
Right.
So when you're lacking, I'm able to, hey, I got food on the table this month.
Right.
Oh, baby, I got this. And so putting God first is not just a cliche. It's not just to say, oh, we got, we saved, both of us saved, sanctified. No, it has nothing to do with that.
'Cause that's definitely what I get from it. Like when someone says putting God first, I say, okay, so we both need to be Christian. But I know that the spiritual side of me knows that it goes much deeper than just that.
It's deeper than that, because even when the Bible talks about being unequally yoked with unbelievers, we always thought that, meaning that a Christian shouldn't date a non-Christian.
Right.
That's one aspect. But the next aspect is that some people have a totally different belief.
Right.
There are some Christians who believe there's nothing wrong with sex before marriage. And lived it sex. I don't mean you're waiting until you get married. Some people, and so, like I said, I can get so in depth with you that your lashes would be off by the time I'm finished, because the thing about it is the thing about it is it was not easy.
Right.
Because I'm saved, and at the time I was an ordained minister, and he was saved, and he didn't have a title, but that flesh was saying, you look good, he look good, she look good. But the love of God, and that's the difference. We was like, God wouldn't approve of this right now.
Right.
Let's wait until we say I do. And so putting him in first in our marriage didn't just begin when we said I do. It began in our dating stages, where nobody would have known if I did what I did.
Right.
But I knew what I wanted, and I felt that this was the one for me. So I was like, why can't I wait for 6 more months? It's love.
Right.
Because there were times when, and this putting God's first, that you're going through whatever you're going through as a couple, and that sex is not on your mind. And because the understanding that God gives, that you're like, it brings such a greater level. And I'm not saying that others that who don't put God first might not experience that, but I'm talking about my experience, that it has shown me that there's such a compassion when it comes to finding that right mate, and like literally, and there are days when it gets ugly.
Right.
But Christ brings us back to being respectful, or keeps it respectful, or keeps it centered, Christ-centered. Because of course, I'm not going to be cursing you out if I'm
I would listen.
Yes, and that's what it is. And that's why I'm saying it's almost like, because of Christ being in the center of it, there's some things that is just a no-no.
Right.
It
doesn't even escalate that far.
No, and if it does, he pulls you in, like, and I said it before, like sometimes I would really get out there. My husband would be like, okay now. I said, let me
Catch
just
yourself.
I like, no. But and that has made me, and it wasn't with a slap. Or some type of physical punishment or whatever, or physical abuse.
Or stepping out to make you feel worse.
No, it was like, hey, bring yourself in, and so, like I said, with it being the center and the foundation, and that's what people don't understand. Once your foundation is solid, whatever you build on that foundation, it might get a little rocky, but it's a solid foundation.
Right.
And so when you build Christ as your foundation, and you would hear people say, and that's why I go back to Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. That's one of my favorite scriptures. In all your ways, acknowledge God. He'll direct your path. And I'll tell you something funny. When he proposed to me, I was upstairs asking the Lord if that was the one for me.
Even at the proposal. So this was after all the dating.
Yeah.
So you did that because you were unsure, or you kind of wanted to make sure?
I wanted to make sure. And then guess what happened?
What?
The old fella
Came back in the picture?
came back in the picture.
That little snake.
And he said, I'm saved now. I was like, okay, what does that mean? He said, no, I'm really saved.
I'm saved for real.
For real, for real, for real. So I was like,
saved.
But it didn't, and the thing about it is, when I was literally on my face, I was like, God, I need to know. He was like, that I was coming to propose that day at church, but I came late. And so I was upstairs asking God, is this the one for me? Because you just don't know.
Right.
Because people, the thing about it is that people like to say this, oh, I know them, I've been living with them it's different. It's different when, especially when the enemy knows that, hey, this is marriage. He hates whatever God has ordained. The enemy fights.
Right.
And so it doesn't move him that you live together. But when you make that commitment and you say for better, for worse, in sickness and health, till death do us part, because this is the ordinance that God has made. And everything that God has made, the enemy tries to make it a fluke, or make it make an imitation or mockery of it. I knew that I didn't want to do this again.
Right.
I didn't, this wasn't something that I needed to get at my mother's house. This wasn't something that I needed to whatever, get whatever excuses people do now to get married. No, this.
So you weren't pregnant?
No, I wasn't pregnant. I was not pregnant.
Because that's why our generation gets married.
Yeah. So it was literally, I could look back now, I could remember moving back to the Bahamas, which was very challenging. Because of course, for some reason, I just figured we would have stayed in Florida. I don't know why. We moved back, and that was a big change for me, because now I had no family.
Right.
I had my in-law who became a real mother, and I had a sister-in-law who became a real sister, but I had no family.
Do you think that strengthened the marriage?
Of course it did.
Right.
Because I really didn't, how we always say, well, I'm going back to mommy, or I'm going back to my parents' house, or I'm going to live with my brothers. Like, where you going?
Nowhere.
To
my mom's house.
And so I remember, so many things building on, remodeling the house, and I remember the first baby, and it was just the second. I could still remember so many memories, and so people don't understand what a blessing it is to be married. Yes, you have your days, just like any relationship. But I know that this is the one, especially if this is the one that God has for me. I'm just like the song say, this is the one he kept for me until it was time. And I'm just amazed, because as strong-willed as I am, he don't have to say much, and I'm like, okay. Like, my aunts were like, when they saw the marriage, the wedding, they was like, oh, I know my niece runs this marriage, and when he opened his mouth, it's like, oops, no, never mind. And so it's precious. It's really, like I said, I could still remember some days where you literally don't know where this is going to come from and that is going to come from, but because of him being such a strong man, he never let me know a lot of that.
Right.
So I remember when we first got married, my pastor in Florida, he said, I wanted to let you know that you didn't marry a boy. You married a man. And that blew me away because we were on honeymoon and he gave me a few $100s. I can never forget. He gave me $300 and I was a sneak, what to call it? Like to
Stash your own money.
Not stash, but like to search. I like to search. And I'm like, okay, he gave me this money. And so I looked in his wallet and I was like, okay, we got a couple $100s. We were in Orlando at the time. And when we came back to Florida, he's like, we're going back to Bimini. And I see him shopping. And I'm like, but where's he getting this money from? Because I'm only calculating, hey, you know.
What he has in his
right.
wallet.
He had 2 wallets.
one that you know about and one that's in.
And that was the one to do the things that he needed to do.
Right.
You understand? That was the one that had to get some fixtures for the house and make sure, buy the plane tickets to get back to the Bahamas. And that just blew me away. Because I had never, you know, sometimes women, they search and they're like, oh, he got $500. That just never in my wildest dream that I know that he just took one, you know, because sometimes you spend more than you should, but he made sure he had enough to say, hey, this is for me and my wife.
Right.
And that was like
the difference between a man and a boy.
Yes. You know, even my brothers were like, you really, every time his birthday or whatever, our anniversary, they were like, hey, you really did good. You know, you've been there for my sister. You've taken over. We're so happy to have you as our brother because, you know, never a black eye, you know, never a bruise, never, you know, even sometime if he plays, I was like, I'm going to tell you, punch me. But I mean, never, no physical abuse. And I wouldn't even say no verbal abuse. You know, the only, a lot of correction.
Right.
A lot of correction. And so a lot of times when people see Christian couples, they have that misconception that they don't go through anything.
Yeah, that is all perfect.
Yeah. And I always tell people that, and they used to say, oh, Rev, or what they call me, you don't go through anything. I said, really? So you think the devil just left us alone and went on his merry way?
And let y'all run off in the
Yeah,
sunset.
I was like, no, why do you think that? And that's because the maturity is that you don't bring everything to the world.
Right.
And that's why people figured that we have this perfect. No, we know how to, pull ourselves in and say, no, to not right now is not the time.
Right.
And so a lot of times, even sometime if I got vocal in front of the kids or whatever, and he'll be like, okay. And I remember this because we're being transparent. I remember this. And sometimes I, said things that I shouldn't have said. He said, be careful because the kids are listening. And then when the kids started saying stuff, I thought, where you get that
from you?
Because we were listening.
Right.
And so putting him first, it does not start when you have issues. It starts from the moment you say, hey, I think this is the one for me. God, what is your thoughts?
Right.
Because he's a father. And so just like in the natural, your natural father would want to know, well, this is the one that you decided to be with. Is this the one you sure this is the one you want? And God wants even better for us. And so he wasn't that type that I would say, oh, yes. I was like, wait a minute. Because he was not a pushover.
Right.
And so I'll tell you this funny thing. The first time we went out to eat, we didn't go out to eat. We got something after church. And the bill was $14. I could still remember this 24 years ago. It was a KFC.
That's it.
24 years ago. And we pulled up at KFC and the bill was like $14 and change. And he gave me $7. I was like, oh, hell no, God. I was like, God, this is not the one for me.
This ain't it.
And so, of course, I put the $7. I said, wait a minute, God. He said, well, I was trying to see if you was a gold digger just like me. I was like, what you mean? He said, I was checking you out to see. So even in that, sometimes we miss God because the package isn't the way we think it should be looking or sounding or smelling or tasting, we miss God.
Right.
You know, we literally miss God, because if I had mined that in one or two other instances, he was like, why you want all my money and you ain't sure? And definitely I wasn't giving up none.
Right.
So basically,
You sound like a gold digger.
yeah, like literally you expect me just to freeload, and I don't even know if you're the one that I'm willing to invest my time with.
Right.
And so that was so funny, because after months later, and I said, you know what really made it bad? He was like, why? I said, because we went to eat, and he was like, yeah, and I was checking you out. And one or two times that happened, or he would pay, and he's like, no, I got this. But you know how we have this misconception that we expect for a man to always pay? You're not even my wife.
Right.
You barely my girlfriend.
And then you'll be doing that for every single woman you come across.
Exactly.
You will have no money.
Exactly. So like I said, the Christ-centeredness, it goes so deep. And even 22 years plus of marriage, I'm still learning to put Christ first.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, you know what we do? We want to deal with stuff on our own. And we feel like, you know what, God, let me deal with this. And he's like, no, you got to put me in everything. I'm going to give you the guidance. I'm going to tell you, even before I came here, I was like, okay, God, just tell me what you want me to say.
Right.
I don't want to say anything to bash anybody or to make anybody feel good. Because sometimes you might marry somebody that's not Christ-centered, and you're like, how did I get myself? And then the thing about it is, you get saved or you get more into Christ, but they out there cutting the fool.
Right.
So what do you do now? You still have to say, God, I have to acknowledge you. What do I do now? You don't just get up out the marriage and say, unless, but
Yeah.
you just don't say,
I'm saved, I gotta get out. I'm out
exactly,
here.
exactly.
You gotta go.
The Lord said, don't be unequally yoked. No, boo. You made that decision. And so I've seen that happen to a lot of persons, where when they got married, they were not saved. And then after a while, the wife got saved or the husband got saved, and that person never got saved.
And to put a strain.
And it's very strenuous on the marriage. It's very strenuous on a relationship, because you find even sometime when you're dating, one almost out of 9 out of 10, one gets closer to Christ than the other. And you find that your desires start to get different. Your dreams start to give it. Your goals start to get different. And so before you make that step, you say, you know what, God, is this the one for me?
Right.
And I would tell any young woman, any young man, as good as she look, as bootylicious, as what all of them stuff, that don't matter. That don't matter.
Right.
Because at the end of the day, when the stuff going wrong, you ain't saying, oh, that's my beautiful. No, you being like, not today.
The rent's late, but girl, you look good.
No. And so it's so many things that I can say that it's benefits of putting him first. I mean, even the things that you go through, because I remember when we first got married and people look at me and they're like, you married? It's like, yes. And you still have people, checking you out.
Right.
Like,
I think that's when they check you out more.
Yeah, because you're somebody else's.
Right.
And so they don't have that responsibility. But if you let them taste.
And you got something to lose. So
yeah.
I'm sure if I go there, you're going to be quiet about it.
Exactly. So you won't spill the beans. So a lot of things people don't realize that it's I've heard a lot of pastors say it's not to go in unadvisedly. Mm-hmm. And I understand that, because you wanna get the full crust or the full meat of it to say, well, okay, is this what I want to do? Because it takes a made up mind. Because even when you get in that marriage, you say, now, did I make the right decision?
Right.
Was he the right one? And don't let that old boo or
always
they
always come back.
Yes.
Always.
Yeah. So you looking like, literally when he proposed to me, like 2 days later, the ex-boyfriend, he came and he was like, you know what? And I'm like, he said, I just want to take you out to dinner. He was like, I was like, what do we have?
Did you go to dinner?
No. I was tempted.
You was tempted?
I was tempted to go to dinner. But I was like, no.
Right.
Because And that's what I try to tell people, that don't even, the Bible says, shun the very appearance of evil.
Right.
And what if his sister saw me out with another guy?
That would have been the end of your marriage before it started.
Exactly. So don't even, sometimes we put ourselves in position and you're like, well, I was just, no. And so even when I moved to the Bahamas, I had people like text, calling me, and I'm like, how did you get my number? Oh, we're calling for your husband. How you doing? I'm fine. You calling for my husband? Yes, how you doing? I'm fine. You're calling for my husband. And, I remember one guy said to me, I want to get you something nice. I want to get you a TV, a nice, and at the time, the flat screens had just come out. And I was like, why? He said, I just want to get you something nice. It's your birthday. I said, no, my husband takes very good care of me.
Yeah, shut that down.
Yes. And the thing about it is, sometimes with putting him first, you have to learn to be satisfied.
Right.
And sometimes that's not easy. Because they used to call me Tingsy. And we all know what Tingsy means.
They don't know what Tingsy means.
Okay. Well, Tingsy means you like things. You like nice things.
You're materialistic.
Yes, very materialistic. And so, I'm the only girl, the last girl, from my parents. And so my brothers always made sure I had. And so, and of course I was working. I didn't get married until I was 27. So I was able to purchase, I was able to buy, I had my own apartment. One spell, I had my own car. So I afforded, I liked nice things, and I bought nice things.
Right.
And so I didn't have to make apology for that. And so people only see that because they see you dress nice. So they think that that's all you are, but it goes deeper than that, because, you always just want to look nice. And so, of course, people are, you Tingsy, you like this? I just like things.
Right.
And so even when I got married, they used to say, boy, you the Tingsiest auntie. I was like, y'all ain't seen nothing yet. I've been delivered. They were like, you just, I was like, please. Yeah. Literally, when he met me, I almost had a ring on almost every finger.
I'd have walked away. You know what? Can't even afford that.
Yeah, I had bracelets, I had jewelry, because I used to work at the hotel. And so I met persons, and they would just give you a nice offering. And see, the misconception is, and this is way straying off, people feel like you got to give up to get up. No, darling. When you that catch and when you that chase, you get free stuff for nothing.
Right.
And so I worked at the hotel.
This is true, guys.
Yes, I worked at a hotel that male would come, older, younger, whatever, and they was like, we just love your personality. Oh, I just bought you this. I'd be like, oh, thank you. They'll be like, oh, yeah, and this is before I rededicated my life back to the Lord. But they were like, oh my God. Even my brothers were like, oh my God. Every time I turn on, you have I was like, I didn't do anything to get it.
They were like, yeah, right.
Yeah, literally. But they knew who I was. And I tell you, the defining or the change came when I gave my life back to Christ. It's like everybody just dropped me. So, because now their motive, of course, she went back in the church and stuff. But I mean, jewelry, gifts, perfumes, earrings, you name it. In fact, years ago, I was downtown and I saw an old boss, and he said, oh my God, I did not recognize you. He said, you have on so much clothes. And I laughed, and I was like, one of my sisters from me, she was like, what? He didn't recognize, because I wasn't always saved.
Right.
But when that change came, and, God started to change a lot of things about me. And so even now when I adorn myself or dress up and people say that to me, I smile, because you really don't know where I've come from to appreciate to where I am now. And so the Christ-centeredness and being married and having the kids, and even in the midst of it, when things got challenging, and as life would be sometimes, he was there to really stand by me and really be that sense of reason. Because the thing about marriage is everything you can't tell everybody.
Yeah, and I think I definitely learned that the hard way, because when you kind of get over that bridge, here comes everybody else. Well, didn't you just say he did? Da, 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 da. So now I just keep my mouth shut.
And my father told me that. He said the best thing to do is to keep your in-laws out of your marriage. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, I'm telling you, keep us out of your marriage. And he said because when your husband might have done something to you and you've forgiven, we haven't forgiven.
Right.
And so we holding him in offense, like you mess with my daughter, whatever. And so that was one of the, my father's passed now, but that was one of the best advices that he gave me, and it worked.
And I could say it definitely worked, because I can't recall knowing none of y'all business
Yeah.
all these years. So that's why I actually came on, like, okay, you guys seem to have a perfect marriage.
And I'm telling you, and I feel led to bring this up. I'm a cancer survivor, and when I was diagnosed with cancer, I remember one of his sisters said to me that the devil have a fight of his life, because your husband is not going to let you go like that.
Right.
And she was like, because we're a praying family. And she's like, you got sisters. And when I tell you, I was in a place where mother died of cancer, aunt died of cancer, the next aunt was diagnosed. I mean, it was devastation when I found out. And then
because you automatically feel like it's a death sentence.
God. And then I just had a baby. He was 3 months old. So to me, that was devastation. Like, God, are you serious? I met a girl last week, because of course, I do nails. I met a girl last week, and she said her husband left her with 4 kids after she found out that she had cancer.
He left.
And they were his kids. He left. And so Christ-centered, made my husband pray for me, fight for me. Like, literally, even my kids. I mean, there was a time I remember when I had the surgery, I couldn't bathe myself. And so my kids, my daughter, my son, would help bathe me off or get my clothes or whatever. And I shudder to think what would have happened if I had married that guy that was 6'2".
Right.
That looked good on the outside. Every now and then, not every now and then, but like out of the clear blue, I'd be like, God, what would my life would have been like if I had married for looks and outer appearance? Because, we like sometimes personality. He looked good, and, he dresses nice.
And he's funny.
Yes, and he wasn't even funny. Well, literally, he was kind of funny, but I'm just saying how I literally shudder to think what type of relationship, what type of marriage, what type of stability I would have. And see, so sometimes we have to look beyond just how it looked to the public. You understand?
Yeah.
How it is really behind closed doors. Because we know we have 2 lives. We have the life we live out in the public and the life we live in private.
Right.
And so what he showed me, that he was willing to fight for me in public and in private. And literally, I remember telling him, and I said, I found a lump. And he was like, okay. And we made a decision to transfer over to Florida. And a lot of people are like, you just don't know.
Right.
When you have Christ at the center, you literally ask him for direction. And at the time, we moved over for the baby. Cancer was nowhere in sight. But because we had and have God in the center of our marriage, he knew that cancer was around the corner. And so he blocked that before it even was 4th stage or whatever stage. It was 2nd stage. But I say that to say, if I had mind people, so that's why you have to, have that type of relationship with God where you say, God, what is the direction for this family? And so he said, you know what, babe, I think you need to go. I was like, no, you need to move, because I was making really good money. And he said, no, I think and we went to our pastor. And it was just between the pastor, and he said, I'm going to cover you guys. And it wasn't cancer. It was just a lump.
Right.
But we didn't want to take any chances. And so he kept us covered. And we moved, and and they treated me with kid gloves. And I want to say to you ladies, even gentlemen, get your body checked out. Know your body. If you're not feeling right in some area, check it out.
Right.
Because your body does not lie.
Right.
And even when you go to the doctor, what they say, what are you feeling?
Right.
Where's the pain? You the doctor, you tell me. No.
No.
You still have to tell me where it hurts. And so, at the time I watched it and the baby grew inside of me, the infection, the lump at the time grew. And December I had a bouncing baby boy, and in the month of February, I think it was 25th, I was told that I have cancer. No, I went to get tested. I took it out, the lump, and March 14th, on our 16th anniversary, I was told that I have second stage cancer. The day of our anniversary. I was literally...
And this was after your mom passed away of cancer. And your aunt.
And the aunt. So this was 2 years later. Because my aunt, 3. My aunt was 2011. My mom was 2010. And that was 2014.
Coming back from watching each person in your family already have this cancer and pass away, mentally, did you already kind of feel like, okay, I'm going to die? Or did you feel like, what?
I was like, oh, hell no.
I'm going to fight this.
I'm going to fight this. I got too much kids.
Right.
Literally. They made me want to fight. They made me want to, I had a 3-month-old baby. It made me resilient. It made me, even the preacher I am today, and so people don't understand why your passion for God is so amazing. And that's because you've been to death's door and you've seen others. And so after I was diagnosed, I had an aunt that died 2 years later. So to see all of that, and yet God preserved me and he allowed me to be alive, that's nothing share of gratefulness. And even, like I said, it was our 16th, we were planning on going out that night. It was our 16-year anniversary. And he said, the nurse, she said, Kathy, she said, you have cancer. I'm like, what? She was like, yeah. She said, do you want me to call your husband? And I said, yes. She called him in. And she told him. And for 3 days, I woke up. I said, thank you, Lord, for waking me up. And wow, I couldn't even pray. I was so blown away. I was like, you can't be serious. I told you I didn't need another trial. You know how we get with God. I said, God, I told you I didn't need another trial. My mother died. My aunt died. In between that, my mother-in-law passed. My spiritual mother passed. So it wasn't even just, in between that, one of the brother-in-law passed. So, you already had enough trials, but one thing he said to me, I will never put more on you than you can bear. I'm like, God, are you serious? So for 3 days, I said nothing. And so that's why I tell people, when you can pray, pray.
Right.
Because there comes a times in your life when situations hits you like, I literally had no words to say.
Didn't have the words, yeah.
I looked at my baby and I'm like, looked at my only daughter and the 3 other boys, and I'm like, 2 other boys, and I was like, and the thing about it is, putting Christ first was, I remember being in the kitchen with my oldest son, and I said to him, I'm going to teach you how to cook. I said, you know how to season meat, but I want to show you how to do the rice and the macaroni, the Bahamian meal. But little did I know that I thought it was because I was going to have the C-section with the baby. But it was going deeper than that.
I was training them to take care of you.
Because...
Hold down the house.
Hold down the house, because now guess what? Mommy's going to be afflicted longer than she anticipated. And so, like I said, it goes beyond just putting Christ first, picking up your Bible and being able to quote a scripture or, trying to make somebody impressed by your long prayer. No, it's about really saying, God, I put you in the center of this marriage. Because I thought about it. What if he was some other guy?
Or someone that wasn't even connected.
Like, I didn't bargain for this. Like, okay, well, she probably gonna die anyway. Like some people did think, so it makes me so appreciative that sometimes I tell the Lord, he overrided my decision. Because when I met him, before I met him, I remember going over the railroad track. The railroad track. And I said to the Lord, I said, God, I know you wouldn't give me a husband because I don't know how to treat you.
You don't know how to treat God.
Because I wasn't consistent. You know how we do. We pray today, forget tomorrow. We pray Thursday.
If you're like me, you fall asleep
Yeah,
praying
exactly,
every night.
exactly.
That's my lullaby.
So that's what I meant. I was like, God, I know you're not going to give me a husband because I need to know how to treat you. And shortly after I met him, because God is not like man.
Right.
And so literally, and that's why I always tell him, I said, baby, God brought you in my life too, also to bring stability. Because literally, that's him. He loves to pray. And so I've gotten a lot of inspiration from him that even when you don't feel like it, and my mother-in-law that passed, that even when you don't feel like it, you still pray, even when even in your affliction. And so the Christ-centeredness goes so much deeper that there were times when he was sleeping, I was up praying. Because there were some things that I was dealing with as a mother, as a businesswoman, as a preacher, and I didn't know how to deal with it.
Right.
And I didn't want to bring it to him to make him feel some type of way. But I know I had to give it to God first. And then he's going to give me direction to it. And so a lot of times he said, well, my husband, darling, your husband ain't God.
Right.
Your husband ain't God.
Right.
Because your husband has to stand before God just like you. I remember I was pregnant with the first baby. And, we would get up in the mornings and pray. And I slid back in the couch and I was like, my husband prayed for me. The Lord was like, you better get up and pray for yourself. And that's how we are. And so the Christ-centeredness, this has really been something that I can shout out to let those know who really want to be married, who want to take their relationship to the next level. Ask God. And if you feel like you don't have that relationship with
that
him,
you're gonna actually get,
yes.
I would say, because sometimes we be talking to God and you be like cricket.
Yeah, or you can say, you know what, auntie or pastor, I met this guy. Or hey, bishop, I met this girl. She cool. Pray about it with me. I want to know if this is the one. It's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with saying, hey, I need some counseling. I need some help to find out if this is the one for me, because she has some beautiful traits. But I really want to know, if I should settle down.
Right.
You know how we do. If I should settle down and, invest all my money in her because she, and guess what? He knows how to answer you.
Right.
And he knows how to allow that person to show you if they the one. But just like your former, person said, we don't want to take those signs that we see.
Right.
Because that's what we want.
Right.
And a lot of times, God said, you know what? That's what you want.
Right. And Kentrell said, show me a big sign.
Yes. Like, you put it on a billboard. Okay, I'm going to put it on a billboard. I'm going to let the whole world see. But he doesn't love to do that.
Right.
That's not his. But one thing I love about God is before we hurt ourselves, God has a way of just bringing us back to himself.
Right.
And I see that more than ever. Sometimes I used to have to say, God, save me from me. Literally. Sometimes I used to say, God, save me from me.
You felt like you were going to self-destruct?
Not self-destruct, but literally some things I know it's not gonna help me.
Right.
So I'm like, God, save me from me. Even sometimes financially. Sometimes you want what you want. And I say, my son says, you want what you want. You don't get upset. You just want what you want.
I just want it.
You just want it. Yeah.
I tell people all the time, when I see like the older couples, like the 40, 50 plus couples, and they've been married for 20 years, like I really admire that, because I'm watching everyone in my age bracket, they're married for 2, 3, 4 years, 8 years tops. If you're married 8 years in my generation, kudos to you. Yeah. And if it doesn't work, we understand you tried.
Yeah.
But it's like, I feel like the older generation is kind of like, I guess they withstand more. Like, I feel like maybe we back out too easily.
Yeah. My prayer was that God help me marry a man that loves you, because I know that once he loves you, he's going to love me.
Right.
And he's going to love me when I'm unlovable. When I'm being rude or nasty, might not, he's going to not even say love, but he's going to tolerate me until I get through that little tantrum or phase or whatever. And so sometimes, a lot of times, we fall in love with, we're infatuated with what we think that person or who that we think that person is. And then when we get to know that real person, we be like, I loved her body. I loved what she could give me. Or I loved what he can give me. But I don't love him
and
as a
after
person.
you get what you can get, it don't even look that good
Yes,
anymore.
it's yeah, so it's sitting here talking to you and really just reminiscing. It's like literally like,
the good outweigh the bad.
yes, and it's what we might think is bad to me has been petty.
Right.
And I think that's what's wrong with this generation. We don't have no stamina.
Right.
No perseverance, And so, yeah, I'm not saying that everybody, but I'm saying a lot of people don't realize that it's going to take some work. Everything that glitters is not gold. It's going to take some work. You're going to have to put some work into it. You're going to have to definitely put God into it. You're going to actually have to, and something he said to me when you mentioned about wanting me to be on the podcast, he said, you got to learn when to shut up. And sometimes that's our biggest problem, because certain things could just be avoided. Just shut up.
Right.
And I'm that strong-willed person at times. I'm like, no, I'm not ready to shut up.
And I'm not gonna shut up. I'm the type of person, I'm not shutting up.
It's like
I'm like, shut me up.
Yeah, I'm like, no, I have to say it. No. And and that's what sometimes God have to say, no, Katie, just leave it. And then I realize that I'm entertaining, because that's what the enemy wants, for it to get messy and and then some people don't know how to say sorry.
Right.
So if you just shut up, you wouldn't have had to say sorry. You wouldn't have had to pay $365 for a window or whatever, because now you're...
Or a new phone.
Or, hey, hello. You didn't have to take it that far, but because sometimes we don't know how to just pull ourselves in, and people might say, oh, you talking fairy tale. No, this reality, boo.
Right.
You got to know how to pull your own self in. And that's naturally and spiritually, to the point where there are times when you want to say, you know what? It even ain't worth it. It's not worth it. It's not worth the backlash, because sometimes we put out there what people don't need to know. And then what happens now? You're so embarrassed to try and fix it.
Yep. And not even trying to fix it. I also, when you put those things out there, here comes someone who's been kind of like watching or lurking, like, okay, now it's my time to step in or move forward. Like, you never actually know who's watching you and who's watching your relationship until you start to hit a bump, and all of a sudden, where you came from? She's standing right on the corner.
Yes. And that's very true, because same thing spiritually. When you fall, people be like, you were such an encouragement to me. Well, why you never told me that before I fell? Right. Why you wait till I backslid? You see me out in the club with my what's that circle? What's that? Ciroc. Why you wait till
I'm Ciroc and Red Bull?
Why you wait till then? Why you just never said, you know what? I'm so encouraged by you.
Right.
You're doing a wonderful job. Be encouraged. No, you wait till I backslid, or or I'm out there doing something on God, and you say, man, you were doing so good. Well, why didn't you tell me that while I was doing good?
Right.
And so a lot of people get discouraged even in the marriage bed, and say, you know what? I don't know if I'm ready to sell out. I don't know if I want to stay with this person forever. I don't know if he's the one that I want to spend my days and night with. Every day it's not going to be a lovey-dovey. It's not going to be a mon chéri and all that. No, and every day it's not. But, you're like, you know what?
But the good got to outweigh the bad.
Like, literally, I call him my cafe latte.
What?
Yes. He's my cafe latte. He's the cream in my coffee. Literally. I don't do dark coffee, and I don't do dark tea. So I was telling them, when they used to make me coffee, I said, make my coffee or my tea like my husband.
Light-skinned.
That's what she's
trying to say. He's light-skinned and she's dark-skinned.
Light-skinned. Just give it. And let me tell you something. When you could say, put God first. I remember when I was pregnant with my daughter, I said to the Lord, I said, God, I want his eyelashes. I want his eye, and you see my kids.
Yeah.
Eyelashes, eyelash. I want his eyelashes and I want his eyebrows. And I said to take me, my color, and his color and mix it.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell you, I always say that God has a sense of humor. Because there are times he'll just
give you just what you wanted.
just what you desired. And when I saw her, I was like, oh my God. The mix, literally, people used to say, is she Indian? Is her father Indian? I said, well, her grandmother is. But literally, and that's what I tell people. It isn't about having God to say, okay, we could, at least we know we could fall back on God. No, it's saying that, hey, you know what, God, we appreciate you being a part of our marriage. We appreciate you, the instructions and how teaching us how to raise our children. Because what happens is we make it seem like successful marriages go by color.
Right.
You know what I mean when I say by color?
By race.
By race. That has nothing to do with it. You have to put work in it.
Right.
And then there are certain things that you mimic. So a lot of people mimic successful. They want to be successful like their parents.
Right.
And so they have something to aspire to.
And to look up to.
Exactly. So sometimes even in our race, we don't have that aspiration.
Listen, my parents was never even together.
Yeah.
I just got here. But hey, he had to put me here one way or another.
One way or the other.
However you did it, Lord, I appreciate it.
I think mine separated when I was 3 months.
Oh, so you didn't even get that role model?
No, I didn't. But she did her best to raise me.
Right.
And she did a hell of a good job.
Yeah.
It wasn't like I had a bunch of, I remember, this is so deep. I heard that one time my father kidnapped me when I was 3 months. And
I took you.
It took me to a hotel. And my mother was horrified. She couldn't find me for days.
What the hell?
Yeah. So, but I never knew that because she never disqualified him as a father.
Right.
The things I know now, I've come to find out like right before she died. That's because she had Christ in her life.
Right.
Also.
Right.
That she was able.
Because if you took my baby at 3 months, that was it.
Exactly. You would have been scared for life, scarred for life. But no,
right.
I saw their relationship get back. Even before she died, he would, they had a very good relationship. And, and so, like I said, being Christ-centered goes so much deeper than just walking down the aisle in the church.
Right.
Because, people be like, well, we're going to have a Christian marriage or wedding. I'm like, really?
What is a Christian
What is that?
wedding?
You actually was a part of my bridal party, so.
And do you know you were the only wedding that I stood in that last? Because I was in both of my moms. I was in my mom's first wedding and the second one, and they both did not last more than a year. So at least I can say it's not me, it's her. Because she said, you know what? You're not going to be in my next wedding because you're bad luck. It ain't me, it's you.
Yeah. You were in my wedding. I remember you come running down the aisle. The bride is coming. The bride is coming. The bride is coming. So it's very fitting to, even discuss this with you and definitely want to write a book of my life story because sometime when I sit and talk about it, I realize how much that Christ has really been the center of my relationships. Even when I was younger and living back in Nassau, my mother, she literally brought us up in the church. And but when I came to Florida, boy, it was another story.
Yeah?
Yeah. I just
broke out.
Broke way out. And I was out there for like 5 years. And that's why I say God sometimes has to save you from yourself. Because if he didn't, I probably would have never met my husband. Because I would have been so far gone. He wouldn't have probably want somebody like me.
Right.
Because definitely I wasn't going to be on the Christian agenda.
Right.
But it took some things that I went through to bring me back into God. And I thank God that when I came back in, I didn't come in with friends. I didn't come in because this one came in. I came in because I knew that this is not what I want for my life. And in turn, being that, God said, you know what? Because you've decided to follow me, I have something for you.
So that was your gift.
It definitely, to me, because think about it. I met him in Florida. He lives in Bimini. I'm from Nassau.
Right.
So how did that even arrange for us to even
Cross paths.
We would have never crossed paths.
And then living across the street from his sister.
Yes. How in the world? And the thing about it is that my brother lived across the street from his sister, who at the time, it was just a refreshing relationship. Let me put it like that. It was very refreshing. I guess I've gotten older. My priorities have gotten different. And sometimes you get boring in a marriage and you have to say, okay, God, spike it up.
Right.
And literally there are times I said to the Lord, I said, God, you gotta give me the fire that I have on the pulpit, the singing and the passion that I have. You know, you have to give that to me, because sometimes the enemy tries to make it seem just like, oh, well, all right, good night.
Here's
Morning,
dinner.
yeah.
Here's dinner.
Yeah, you know, like,
Here's
all
some
right.
stove.
All right, whatever. Do whatever you got to do. I'm asleep, but then whatever.
Either way, you'll be here when I get back.
you know, and so sometimes every now and then you have to say, you know what, God, spike it up a little. You know, give it flavor. And that was always my prayer when I saw that the enemy would try to fight in marriage. I'd be like, God, the same passion that I have on the pulpit, the same zeal that I have when I'm singing to you, bring that in my bedroom. I literally, because everybody don't have that Speedo all the time.
Right.
You know, there are times when you be like, all right, whatever, you know. But that's a part of the marriage, the love making, the cooking, the cleaning together, the raising the children together, the praying together, the studying together, the jogging together. I mean, sorting out your finances together, really asking God for direction. It's so much more than what people think. And because we haven't been exposed to what it really is, we more take the negative side and, well, marriage is for better, for worse, submission. And it's so much bigger than that. Mm-hmm. You know, it's so much bigger than that. And you said it to me one year when we had on the same matching shirt. You said goals.
Right.
Like after
I still have that picture.
Yeah, after 17 years of marriage, you guys still dressing alike. And it's just like wine. It gets better with time. Mm-hmm. I literally can say that because in the first stages, you're learning one another. You're getting to know one another. And you're trying to be a fit, because these are two different individuals, totally different personalities, trying to become one.
Right.
And so you're trying to make me like you. I will never be like you, but I can compliment you.
Right.
And I think that's one of the biggest downfalls, because even one of my pastors that passed, she said, God complimented you for this man. And I was like, what do you mean? You know, she was like, yeah. Because you like to spend and he don't like to spend. You know? And she was like, and I was like, oh my God. She was like, yeah.
I never looked at it that way.
Yeah. She was like, God made you, just the right fit for him. And I was like, wow, you were so, and I was like, thank God he doesn't like to spend, because we probably would have been homeless many days.
Right.
Because there were days I came to Florida and I was like, I went back to the Bahamas with $5. Mm-hmm. Like, because I know he had money. Like, I spent every dollar.
And now what if you had to spend all your money?
Yeah,
and
he
you
didn't.
like, he ain't had no money.
I don't want that. But he always he's like, baby, when I was like, no, you better come, And that those were the years. Those were the years. But it's I must say, lived it. It's been some good years.
All right.
And can I say something before we close?
Mm-hmm.
Before we got married, we never slept together. No.
Mm-hmm.
But I wasn't a virgin when he married me.
Right.
So I don't want people to think that, it can't work, because if you're in Christ, you become a new creature. Mm-hmm. And even though I'd messed up years before, it was like when I got back in Christ, I worked on me. Because I came back in the church at 22, I backslid at 17. So I was out there like 5 years, and I was like, that was enough. And I worked on me. Mm-hmm. I didn't wait for, people say, well, I waited for that man. No, God helped me to work on me. And that's what I did. Until I met him, I was working on me. I was, working on character, because I realized that I started to become somebody else that I didn't recognize, going out to the clubs and, and this guy and that guy and hanging out and no. And you always hear me, Kahlua and cream was my drink, and when people say, you want a drink? I'm good. I've been there. I've done that. I'm
Right.
good.
Right.
I had friends who wanted to be more than friends, and I had to say, no, I'm not ready to go to that level with you or whatever. And then I had friends who tried to take advantage of me because they wanted to go to that next level. You understand? And that's why I say God protected me from myself. And so, I remember giving my life back to the Lord downstairs in my car because I couldn't get in the church that New Year's Day morning, that New Year's night service, the
Yeah.
tradition, you got to be in church. I sat in my car and I said, you know what, God, I need you to change me. I need you to work on me because this is not Katie. And I knew he was drawing me because I stopped going out. I would be, fix my hair every other week. I would go to the mall by myself. I started to just withdraw from people. And I just started to become this different person. And I remember this guy that I dated, he was like, so what am I going to do? I said, boo, you got to do whatever you got to do, but you ain't going to be doing me, and I'm a realist. I always tell people that I'm a realist preacher. I was like, whatever you going to do. I said, well, that girl who was checking you out, check her out. And he was like, so you really give your life to the Lord? I was like, yeah. And you know what he said to me? I always saw you as a saved young woman. And it's amazing that people see stuff in you that you don't even see in yourself.
Right.
But he was bold enough to say, I always saw that in you. I always saw this nice car with the hat. And that stood out to me. And so when he said that to me, I started working on me. And I started just going in on God and going hard for God. And I was one of the youngest ministers that got ordained in the church. I was in my 20s. I was like 23, 24 when I got ordained as a minister. And people were like, you went so, yeah. Because nothing like when you know that you're done with the things of the world. And I'm like, no, I'm done.
Right.
I'm done. I want better for me. And one thing my mother said to me, don't settle for nothing less because there's nothing lacking on you. And I was 13 when she said that to me, and I kept that. And there were times that I settled for less. And I had to say, Katie, wait a minute now. It was almost like a prodigal son experience. Wait a minute. Yeah, there were nights when before I gave my life to the Lord, Levi, I was coming in the house and trying to jump over so my brother wouldn't hear me coming in the house. And so that's why he's so proud of me now, because he knew that this person, my baby sister used to be, and now she's married with 4 kids in ministry, business, and you name it. And like, it's possible.
Right.
But it's not possible outside of God. Because guess what? I would have been successful. But what is success without Christ?
Right.
It's almost like the successful without the you. It makes no sense.
Right.
And so he brought everything into fruition, even with pruning me and allowing me to detach myself from friends, and my girls, I remember they used to tease me, oh, what, you in the church now, I know you burning, da-da-da-da-da-da. And I was like, oh, yeah. It was like, yeah, right, and da-da-da. I know you've been doing this on the side. And I was like, you know what, I ain't got nothing to prove to you, because I still adorned myself. And then people were still giving me gifts. So, of course, they figured I was giving it up to get the gifts.
Right.
But God was preparing me for my husband.
Right.
God was actually just weaning me. And even now they inbox me and they say, oh my God, you're still married? Like, you actually married? Even my brothers are like, they call me Gizmo. They're like, Gizmo, you are 22 years.
That's impressive.
I was like, yeah, we're still married.
So nowadays it don't last. It don't last. And even with how you moved here and you left him there, like, I feel like that would have put it, like you said, you got dumped for that. But your ex-boyfriend was living in the
Nassau.
And you hear he was like, he can't do the long distance. So to be married and living in two different countries
yes.
and still able to make it work and withstand, like,
And
that's amazing.
Yeah. And the thing about it is, don't try and mimic what other people do. You know, see what fits for you and works for you, because people be like, oh, well, they did it, I could do it. No, boo. No, you got to know your man, and you got to know your woman. You got to know, because roach will be on your bread.
They don't know what that means. That means another woman will be in your bed.
Yeah.
Roach on your bread. So that's the advice that you would have for everybody. Know your partner.
Yes. Know your partner. Know who God is. Because all of us, don't care how much we would say, well, I don't have that relationship with God like that. All of us knows that when it's in our heart and say, you know what, I feel that's the right one. Because God has given all of us common sense, even though common sense isn't very common.
Right.
But all of us know there is something in us that says, you know what? You know, we say, something told me.
Right.
You know, God speaks to us in very unusual ways, and you'll be like, no, that's not the right one. Or he'll say, that's the right one. Or don't worry about how it looks right now. It's going to be okay. You know, and that's how it is even in life. You know, as bad as it looked, you know, in the back of your mind, you know, like, get a small voice and say, you know what, it's going to be okay.
Right.
You're going to bounce. And even those who have gotten divorced, you know, and they say, well, I'm believing God for marriage, another marriage. There's nothing wrong with that. You know, it's nothing wrong with believing. That's your belief in God. And don't let nobody make you feel like, hey, because what I've seen God do, I've seen him make mess out of miracles. And you've heard people say that. I have a pastor that lives back in the Bahamas, and he was on drugs for years, 16 years. And his wife stayed with him.
And he said, there's nothing I haven't done except other men.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, and it's just a testimony of his faithfulness. And what I love about God is that everybody's situation is different. You understand? And so I always used to tell a lot of young people, don't feel bad if maybe you had a child or two before you got married. Don't feel condemned. Well, we didn't have children until 5 years later. Or you had it the first year.
Right.
You know, and so for those who desire to get married, it's okay to wait. It's okay to wait. Why get married just to say because you're married, boo? Just because everybody's married and everybody seems happy? No, the happiness and contentment starts with it. And so those are my...
That's your advice.
Yes.
I love it. So thank you so much for coming on to the show. I really appreciate you just kind of letting everybody know your little tips and advice that you would have for them. Like I said before, I really do look up to your marriage and how you were able to withstand and make it all look so graceful.
So not only have I lived it, I'm here to tell my survival story, and I'm here to encourage you to know that, hey, guess what? Let's live it up.
Thank you so much. So guys, make sure you tune in next week, Monday, where we have an all new episode, and I'm sure you guys are going to enjoy it. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next week. Wasn't that amazing? If you guys enjoyed this episode with Kathy, she does a Facebook Live. She does live sermons each and every day. I'm going to make sure to include all of the link down below. Definitely don't forget to leave comments and let me know if you like it. Thumbs up, subscribe. Thank you all for listening. I'll see you guys next week.